Christy McClear. I'm an undergraduate alumni class of 1988, and I've been the chair of the Arts Advisory Council. So today is the first of the summer sessions, so welcome. And we actually have a great announcement. We have a new Stanford Alumni Association president, Michelle Landry Klein. She's a BA from 93 and has an MBA from 98. So our new SAA president will start August 31st. We're very, very excited. So a little housekeeping for us. 2 points. We want to make sure that there are lots of questions, and so we're going to have you guys put questions in the Q&A module. I had to get a little lesson this morning. If you don't see it at the bottom of your screen, it's under More. So make sure you put your questions along the way in the Q&A module. And at the end, there's going to be a short survey. So we want to know what you thought about it so that the summer sessions always answer your questions and delight us in our learning journey. So on to today's presenter. Deborah Cullinan, I've had the honor of being a volunteer leader for her in her leadership for about 5 years. It is my honor to introduce you. She's the VP of the Arts, and some of you may not know what that really means, so I just wanted to connect it to the things that matter to us as alumni. So the types of things that Deborah oversees are the Cantor and the Anderson Museums, Bing Concert Hall and Frost Amphitheater, the public art program across the campus, the Institute for Diversity in the Arts, which just celebrated its 25th anniversary, major concerts such as Coldplay or BTS, and all the ways in which art actually creates community and culture on our campus. So with that, I just want to welcome you, Deb, and we look forward to learning from you.
Thank you, Christy. It's such a pleasure to be here and to help start off the summer sessions. So I'm going to tell you a little bit more about Stanford Arts and share some of the opportunities that we provide along the life course, and hopefully we can have a conversation. So thank you all for being here. So I am going to start with the next slide. Just by telling you a little bit more about Stanford Arts, and thank you to Christy for a good overview. So really, we are a constellation. We are a constellation of institutions, departments, programs, and people that all together aims to unleash the full potential of the arts on campus and in our communities. And so while I oversee the museums and the performing arts organization and the public art program and several of our institutes, we also have many people, many units, many departments and programs across campus that are engaging deeply in the arts. Next slide. So what I like to think about is that we're here in order to support people who care about the arts. So these are people who focus, our students who major or minor, faculty and staff who are very engaged in the arts. It's also to support people who may not major or minor, may not be focused directly every single day on the arts, but who are very engaged. And then also to reach the people who have yet to be inspired. So I feel like there's a whole population and constellation of people that we're here to serve. We're also here to really think about art across disciplines. What is uniquely interdisciplinary about Stanford? We are talking about art and science, art and health, art and climate change, art and AI and technology, and developing initiatives and programs and visiting artists and all of this in order to really unearth the way that we are engaging across discipline. And then finally, we're offering lifelong learning opportunities and engagement in service of campus and community. And I'll just start here by saying that it's really important to note, and I always like to think about the fact that Jane Stanford founded the museum, now known as the Cantor, when the university was founded. So this is deep in the DNA of Stanford, this idea that the university would be a gateway to all, an experience of lifelong learning for the people in the region, not only the people on campus, and that's been a part of the university since the very beginning. Next slide. So as I said, the Cantor founded when the museum was founded. the Anderson and the Cantor together offer an array of programs that are free to the public. The museums are always free all the time. And I thought, in addition to exhibitions, I would tell you a little bit about some of the things that we do across the engagement spectrum. And so I'll tell you just about one or two of the exhibitions right now. I mentioned Jane Stanford, and I'm really excited that we just opened a new exhibition on the ground floor of the museum called Jane exclamation point. Really worth looking at. It tells the story of Jane Stanford and her remarkable philanthropy, her vision, her quirkiness, her story through artifacts and art objects that the university has in archives. And it's a really interesting reflection on Jane. We're mindful that often we focus on Leland Stanford or Leland Stanford Jr., and this is a real opportunity to explore Jane's life. So I highly recommend that. The other exhibition that I wanted to tell you about is at the Anderson Collection. This one is very unique. We invited an artist named Erica Chong-Shook, who is actually a choreographer and director in theater and dance, to join us over the course of a year as a visiting artist. And we asked her, given her social practice, Erica's work is very deeply rooted in engagement and in bringing people together to create intimacy and engagement and a feeling of togetherness. We asked her what kind of campus-wide project could we do that might create the opportunity for people to come into a relationship with one another and to learn stories, to feel more connected, to feel less isolated, to feel really part of a community. The project she came up with is called 1,000 Ways to Hold. And Erica did a series of workshops across the campus with students, with faculty, with staff, with community members. During those workshops, people made pinch bowls, little tiny ceramic bowls. And while they were making those bowls, they were paired. And Erica facilitated a conversation where they answered the question, when have you felt held? And when have you held another? Those stories were all recorded, and working with Stanford engineering students and art students, Erica embedded those stories in the bowls. The bowls are now on display at the Anderson Collection. You can go to the museum, walk into the galleries, pick up any bowl, take the bowl to a podium that was also created by Stanford students, and place the bowl on the podium, and the story from that bowl will fill the gallery space. It's truly remarkable to experience this kind of exhibition where people are encouraged to touch, to find themselves, and to find other people. And this is an example of what our museums can do. So here we also do a significant amount of programming with community. So we have family programs, including twice annual free Art for All family days at both museums, and we have thousands of people come. The Anderson Collection just introduced a new program called Museum Minis, so adorable, where young children and their caregivers come into the museum and they experience stories that help them connect with ideas and concepts related to the art in the museum and to art in general. We have many public programs, exhibition tours, lectures, and all kinds of arts-related events. Many of these are driven by students through our student internship program, and they can include making things together. They can include experiencing one piece of art or a whole exhibition, and we do these year-round. And then we also have museum engagement guides. This program is a really renowned volunteer program that provides very thoughtful training to people who want to lead public, private, and K-12 tours. We offer tours in Spanish, in Chinese, in English, and we hear from people all across the community how important the Museum Engagement Guide program is to them. In fact, I was just at the Anderson the other day, and one of our volunteers told me that it is her favorite day of the week. Next slide. So many of you may also be familiar with our public art program. We have more than 80 objects out on campus that are available and accessible every single day of the year. Here we have just a few examples. Over here, Amulets by Alia Farid. This is a project called the Plinth Project. It's an experiment that is modeled after the plinth in Trafalgar Square in London, where we're rotating, dynamic rotation, right? Large scale commissions at the center of campus on Meyer Green so that students and our community can engage with new and surprising projects over the course of their time at Stanford. Alia is a sculptor and filmmaker. This is her first public art installation in North America. And these are translucent forms that are made of blue faience, which is a turquoise glaze that has been used for something like 6,000 years, and also polyester resin, which is a byproduct of more modern petroleum production. And Alia is really inviting viewers to consider the relationship between industrial practices and handmade objects. And this is an example of a piece of art that changes dramatically over the course of the day. So not only is it dynamic in that it is temporary, it's also dynamic in that it changes over time. Pars Pro Toto, Alicia Quade. This is an extraordinary exhibition or public art installation at SEQ. There are 12 stone spheres of varying sizes that international artist Alicia Quade sourced material from across the globe in consultation with Stanford geologists. She scattered the scattered marbles in a model of the quad in order to determine where they're placed. And it almost feels like you're on a giant game board, really engaging with materiality and with varying size sculpture. It's pretty spectacular. This is a really good example of a program that we have through our Public Art Committee, where every time we are engaging in the building of a new building, a new school, we are incorporating public art, and we do that very hyper-locally in collaboration with the dean of the school, with faculty and students and staff, in order to animate what's happening, research and teaching and learning that is happening inside of these buildings. And you'll see more and more examples of this across campus as we go. And then finally, our Stanford mobile app. This is an expansive app that we use to help the public and help people engage with the public art collection on their own time. If you get into the app, you can find our public art tours, a robust map of all of the art on campus with all kinds of details about all of the work. Public art tours include student curated tours, curated tours by folks from the Cantor and the Anderson collection, and theme-based tours as well. So I invite you to participate in that. Next slide. So Institute for Diversity in the Arts is one of the institutes, and Christy mentioned, that is in my portfolio. And I wanted to call them out because of their engagement work and the way that they are providing opportunities for people on and off campus. So here we have an example, Street Code Academy, which is basically free art and tech classes for youth and their families at Stanford. And Street Code is based in East Palo Alto. So this is a really important opportunity that we have to bridge the space between East Palo Alto and the campus, and to make our resources and our beautiful campus available to people who are living and working in East Palo Alto. The Graves Filmmaker Seminar is a renowned 3-day seminar at Stanford for artists who are working in cinematic realms, and it's hosted by Blackstar in collaboration with the Institute for Diversity in the Arts, and brings people in filmmaking from all over the country and sometimes the world to Stanford. And then Unbar Cafe Community University is one example of courses that are taught by IDA's faculty director, Adam Banks, in community spaces in Cleveland. Next, please. And Stanford Live. I wanted to really focus on Stanford Live because they have a significant amount of programming, very robust community engagement and lifelong learning opportunities for people. So as was mentioned, we do cross-generational concerts for all. We have about 194,000 attendees throughout the regular Stanford Live season. And this is mostly at events at Bing Concert Hall and Frost Amphitheater, sometimes Memorial Auditorium. And this is really extraordinary programming where we've had We recently had David Byrne, we had Paul Simon, we had Doechii right after she had won the Grammy. And so we have these really extraordinary array of concerts that are really known for the breadth of programming. There is something for everyone. And I always say that if you don't come and engage in something that's not as interesting to you, then you're missing out on an opportunity to grow and to learn all of the different kinds of forms that we bring to campus. So invite you to partake. And then, as Christy mentioned, we've recently inaugurated concerts at the Stanford stadium concerts, so really large scale concerts. We started with Coldplay and Chris Martin, you see here, 2 concerts with 40,000 people per night. And then here you see just completed 3 nights of concert BTS with 50-some thousand people each night. Really remarkable. We just received an economic impact study, and over those 3 nights for BTS alone, we brought in $133 million of economic activity for the region. A couple things I will say about these concerts is that they're a remarkable example of what athletics and the arts can do together in terms of bringing people together from across the region to really engage in community regardless of life experience, regardless of of what people believe. It's really an extraordinary way of being together. BTS is particularly well known for their army, their incredible super fan base, and it was really marvelous to see the BTS army in full force, from babies at their very first concert with their grandmothers, and the BTS army is known for something called the freebie culture, and what this is they're making things and bringing these things to the concert and exchanging them, and so it's a real win if you leave a BTS concert with tons of pins and other homemade objects that were made by fellow fans. And then finally on BTS, we were really pleased that our new supervisor in Santa Clara County is also BTS Army, and she and the president of the Board of Supervisors came to the concerts, and they also proclaimed the week of the concerts BTS Week. And so I was able to go on behalf of Stanford to receive that proclamation and to thank the county, the firefighters, the Santa Clara, the Palo Alto Police Department, Santa Clara County emergency responders, all of the people that came together with our campus community to make something so extraordinary happen, and it was pretty great. Though I will admit that I think they would have preferred that the band came instead of me, but next slide. In addition to these kinds of large scale concerts and activity, changed my perception. And because we know of that transformational quality of the arts, I think we have an obligation to make experiences that are relevant and accessible to all. And I think we also have an obligation to integrate that transformative quality into the systems and structures that make up our lives. And so I am here to help make those connections and really consider how we can transform lives and create the conditions for lifelong learning and discovery. And so here, Jason Parker is a Seattle jazz trumpeter, and he says, I was in elementary school in Palo Alto in the 70s when I saw Dizzy Gillespie and his band play at Addison Elementary School. It must have been around 74 or 75. That day changed my life forever, and I have pursued a career as a professional trumpet player ever since. So Dizzy Gillespie, Chris Martin from Coldplay, BTS, and everyone in between, we do have the opportunity to provide these kinds of lifelong moments for people, and I look forward to your questions and to a really great conversation. Thank you.
Deborah, thank you. That was great. I'm watching all the questions roll in. I'm like noticing some nodes of interest.
Great.
I just want to remind everybody, please ask questions in the Q&A module. We're tracking them. I'm going to start asking Deborah some questions. I just want to pull together one question I'm seeing here, which is a very good, great top line question with that story about the bowls, which somebody exclaimed, it really is beautiful when you take somebody's bowl and you put it on this, almost like a record player invented by an art and tech.
I thought of Erica Chong-Shook, the artist that conceived and executed that project, 1,000 Ways to Hold, because I know a couple of things about Erica from knowing her over many years. One of the things is that she can create intimacy in vastness. Like it doesn't matter how large the project, there's intimacy. And when I was thinking a lot about how we today are really struggling with isolation and this idea of a loneliness epidemic and feeling disconnected or divided and not together, not interconnected, interdependent, I couldn't think of a better artist. So that's one thing that I think about with Erica. The other thing I know to be true about Erica, because I've produced and produced work with her and know that she's limitless in her creativity. She thinks anything is possible. And she tells this great story how when she met the Stanford student, and she said, I want to make this thing, and I want people to be able to take the bowl and put the bowl on the thing, and I want that. Can you do that? And they just said yes. And that is just that is my experience of Stanford students, that they believe in possibility, they love a good problem, they want to be creative. And so that's one part of it, is just, how are we creating those conditions where people can feel like, oh, I don't care, it's a moonshot. And if we're creating those conditions for scientists, why not create those conditions for artists? Why not create the conditions for artists to truly go for the moonshot, to absolutely take us somewhere new and different, because that's what they're here to do. So that's a part of it. In terms of interdisciplinarity and how to cultivate it, I didn't talk about the Stanford Arts Institute as much here, but I will now. And so Hideo Mabuchi, who is our faculty director, and I'm very proud of this fact, he is, and as far as I know, the first scientist to be heading up an arts unit at Stanford, which in and of itself speaks volumes. Hideo is a physicist. He is also a ceramicist, and so he's an embodiment of being an artist and a scientist, and a true believer that the only way we will address the challenges and opportunities that we face is if we make things together and if we prioritize what it is to make and to create and to imagine. And Hideo and I have been working really hard on this interdisciplinarity thing, so I'll just tell you about a couple of things there. One, we have something we call the Arts Catalyst Program. So this is basically a fellowship for Stanford faculty who are integrating art into their teaching and research practice. So it's a growing community. We started with about 20 people from across campus. We have scientists, people from medical school, and people in art history and theater and performance studies, etc. And it feels really important that we grow that community. So I think of it as a culture of invitation. We invite you, you invite another, we multiply. And so we just launched the second cohort of this community, and we're just building on it. And it's been remarkable because there is clearly, it is a thing at Stanford. It's people who are working on food systems or working in biomedical health these are people who are very interested in artistic inquiry and the process of artistic discovery. So that's one thing. Hideo and I have also launched an art and AI working group, again, a very cross-campus kind of endeavor where we're bringing lots of different people together to talk about why art and human creativity are ever more important. We have a collaboration with MIT that we are just underway now, putting together a symposium for MIT faculty and Stanford faculty as two places obviously very known for STEM. How do we think about this? How do we think about the arts? How do we understand what role art and creativity really will need to play in human flourishing? So those are just a few things. There are many more. I also did work with President Levin to bring two different groups of faculty to Hoover House to just engage him in a conversation. I thought it would be interesting for him to meet faculty across discipline, as he is also doing listening tours where he's meeting with departments. I thought, wouldn't it be interesting to hear across this spectrum of Stanford faculty who are actually integrating art into their work? And so we did two of those conversations, which also I think leads to this kind of culture work that we're really focused on. And Christy, you know a lot about just how do we think about Stanford culture as a place of curiosity and creativity.
Yeah, I think of what Deborah's done such a beautiful job of is moving it from art for art's sake into culture and creativity, which we know in the age of AI is actually an amazing thing. So I'm going to go to one of these questions. We have a couple of questions. I'm going to say we have some funding questions. We have some participation, people wanting to participate questions. We have some on public art and how it's chosen. But I'm going to focus a little bit on balance because I know that that's something I feel very strongly about. So this is a great question. What vision or strategy do you have in mind to combat the narrative that Stanford is solely a tech or an entrepreneurial focused school generating apps, technological advances, and research?
Great question. And I think that that's why I'm here. It is to make the case for and execute on the idea that we have to have these conditions, right? Creativity, art, imagination, curiosity are requisite to a place of discovery, especially as technology continues to advance and AI will do some things for us. There are things that only we can do as human beings, and we need to do more of those things. So what I like to think about is it's a both and, right? And we have to have the most extraordinary future leading arts institutions and initiatives on campus. Stanford Live, our museums, our public art program, and beyond are leading the way. And I can tell you the Cantor, with leadership of Veronica Roberts, is one of the most regarded university museums in this country. The Anderson Collection is the most remarkable private assembly of modern and contemporary American art. Iris Namani's leadership at Stanford Live is focused on the idea of art and music and performance as engagement, as a way to cultivate the conditions for creativity. Without Iris, I don't think we could have executed on the stadium concerts. So we need that, right? And we need extraordinary public art. And we need to understand that it is not just the objects. It think that an event near you would be a good idea. And then second, we do have in New York and in LA in particular, where we know there's a high concentration of arts engaged alumni, we do have advisory councils in both of those places. And so, you know, reach out if you are interested in learning more about these advisory councils, but really what we're trying to do is build networks. And I'd love to build networks in other regions because I know how many people across the globe are truly arts engaged and don't have access to those networks. Christy shared a data point. Another one that just speaks to this is that the two largest minors on campus are creative writing and music. Our art practice classes are completely oversubscribed. And I share that just to say that the perception can be, if you look at the headlines or you look at the majors or, you know, these kinds of things, the perception can be that there aren't as many arts interested people, but there are. And I know that one of the biggest tasks that I have is to better connect those people. So there's just a couple of ways. I also welcome ideas. I just, you know, we have Stanford in New York, and we do an immersion program in New York where we bring students every year at spring break, and we work to build a mixer for those students and Stanford alumni in New York. And that we engage with the New York Arts Advisory Council as well. We're doing that in Los Angeles with a newly endowed immersion program as well. So these are some examples of structures that we have in place and that we can improve upon and expand.
Okay, I'm gonna give you a softball. Who are or were Cantor and then Anderson?
Oh, who are the people?
Well, how did that name come about? Like, how are they named? Who are those people?
Yes, So let's start with the Anderson collection. I mentioned that the Anderson collection is one of the most, it is, I think, the most remarkable private assembly of modern and contemporary American art. And it was donated to the university by Hunk and Moo Anderson. And you know, these Hunk and Moo were renowned Bay Area art collectors who, over the course of their lives together, amassed an extraordinary private collection. And one of the things that is so remarkable is the way they lived with the art. I did not have the pleasure of meeting either one of them, but I feel like I know them because their collecting was really rooted in relationships. And it wasn't just the relationship with the artists, it was also their own relationship to living with beautiful things. They passed that love and that connection on to their daughter. Her name is Putter. And Putter now she serves on the Anderson Collection Advisory Council, and also her daughter Devin. So it's a real family tradition, and we work together to try to hold that tradition and just keep the concept of living with beautiful things relevant for people who, I don't know, you can experience it even when you go to the museum. And I feel like the way the museum was built is actually in honor of that experience. And then the Cantor, which was originally named the Stanford Art Museum, was named after lead donors Iris and Gerald Cantor. And that happened, I should know, but I don't know exactly when that happened right off the top of my head. Maybe you know, Christy.
I don't exactly the date.
So we will have to Google that, but that's an example of just, again, I can step back and say, if not for the Cantors, if not for the Andersons, if not for Dee Dee and Bert McMurtry, if not for Peter Bing, Steve and Roberta Denning, people who believe, the Humes, I could go on, people who believe so deeply in the arts and in the centrality of the arts to Stanford's mission, without whom I probably wouldn't be here. And we see that, in large donations and things, named buildings and other kinds of opportunities. We also see it through our advisory council, our growing network of alumni, people all over the planet who are really trying to think about and help execute why the arts are so important.
You answered one of the bigger questions here, which is sort of how these are funded. I'm going to combine two. One is a question about the Andrew Goldsworthy, which also, there's another set of statues nearby, which were endowed by the Fisher family, who's also one of the major benefactors for the art program. Because some of the questions how do we pay for this? And I'm going to specifically ask this next question because it's a really great one about also about speech. How have the arts of Stanford been impacted by federal pressure and policies that have infringed upon free speech and expression at universities and institutions?
Yeah, I think what we try to hold to is a commitment to free expression, right? What makes a university great is that we can exchange ideas and we can learn about different perspectives. We are very committed to curatorial judgment and artistic freedom, right? And so we're not here to tell an artist what to say or not say or do or not do. I think one of the things that I think about a lot is what it means to be deeply curious. And Christy, you and I have talked about this a lot with our colleagues, Kate Duhamel and others, but this idea of how important and increasingly important it is for us to be so curious, so deeply curious about one another, that we really have to know. We have to understand different points of view. We want to know each other's experiences. we really want to know. And we have to be so deeply curious in the age of AI. We have to be so curious, we're asking the next question. We're thinking beyond, right? These things are so important. And when I think about, you know, freedom of speech and civil discourse and all the work that we're doing at the university to engage people and to really help all of us understand how to come into a discourse, a conversation, an exchange that is not about trying to change your mind. That there almost is nothing like art. Not that you come to art so naturally curious. You want to know. You're like, what was this artist thinking? Where was this artist standing? How did they make this? What did they, all these questions come to you when you're trying to understand a work of art. And that skill, that observational skill, that empathetic quality, that curiosity there is something that we need across disciplines. So I think it's ever more important that we create the opportunities for that kind of expression and exchange of ideas, and we also bring our curiosity to it.
We have Anna, who has a BA from 1974. She said, would you elaborate on the art project to preserve Chicano Latino murals that Stanford students began in the early 1970s? And they are beautiful.
Oh, yes. So I am very proud of this. So first I will say that Rose Salceda, who is a professor in art and art history, has been doing extraordinary work really capturing the history of Chicano murals on the Stanford campus, and they are remarkable. So I want to credit Rose for taking care, for capturing the history and for bringing it alive. So the artwork that you're referring to is on the facade of El Centro, which, as many of you know, is very visible. White plaza, and the mural. The artist Malaki Montoya had developed this mural many years ago, and it was just deteriorating. It was never really meant, as I understand it, was never really meant to stay outside all year round. And we identified the challenges and worked with the students who actually studied with him and helped him originally to develop a technology to recreate the mural with like weather and aging and time in mind, and to restore it. And so it's really been remarkable because of that student exchange, that intergenerational work, and it just looks absolutely beautiful. So I highly recommend taking a peek at that. And we recently were able to hire Stanford's first public art program manager. So this is the first person full-time dedicated to our public art program. His name is Mark Schooney. He came from the Anderson Collection, and he has done a really good job of assessing the collection, understanding where we had risk, where we had need for repair, where we needed wayfinding and better signage, how to think about activating, where we actually could use public art that we don't currently have it. And so it's really Mark and his creativity, his network, and his commitment to the collection that's enabled us to take care of some of these objects that needed attention.
And that Andrew Goldsworthy that somebody was asking a question about is right outside of the Anderson. So, and you can go anytime and see it right there.
It's important to note that it's meant to be hard to see, right? Like it's called Stone River, and it's made from stones from the Stanford campus, and it's really a winding kind of wall that you might not notice, and that's a really important part of what I think Andy was trying to achieve.
And then the Richard Serras, which are between the two museums. I would invite you guys to just sort of go back there. It's a perfect place for a picnic.
Yeah, the Richard Serra, and then the Beverly Pepper columns that are located directly across from the Anderson Collection. I love those columns. Also Corten steel. Many would argue that Beverly was working in Corten steel before Richard, but I'll leave that to the historians. But they're these remarkable columns that truly communicate with the sky, and like the Plinth project, Alia Farid's amulets, They change so beautifully over the course of the day because of the sunlight and the shade from the trees. It's really quite beautiful.
It's a perfect walk. So next time you guys are on campus, this is your walking thing. Okay, I'm gonna ask, this is our last question, Deborah, and then I'm gonna close with some more housekeeping. But how is the public art chosen? And then is there anything that our audience should know about?
Mm-hmm. So great question about the public art. We have a public art committee. I am the co-chair of that committee with our campus architect, Dave Lennox. My office oversees this, the committee itself. It's a presidential committee, so we appoint some faculty, some alumni, some students and staff. Nice mix, nice representation. And together we work with a fantastic Stanford alumna who is also on the Arts Advisory Council, Sabrina Buell. She has significant expertise as an art advisor, and so she supports us in thinking through how to do open calls for ideas, which artists to reach for proposals, how to think about citing, and we take all of that into account. So typically we select some artists after a process. We ask them to develop proposals. Usually it's about 3 artists, depending on the project and the opportunity. They'll develop the proposal. We support them financially while they are developing the proposal. And then we'll vet that proposal in the Public Art Committee and make a recommendation to the university. So that's how it's been working so far. And it's a great opportunity for engagement. We also do receive incoming. You can imagine that people are quite often calling with ideas. Either they have something that they would like to donate or they would like to commission something. And so we respond to those opportunities as they come.
I think we are going to wrap this up. Deborah, I want to thank everybody for joining us. It was just a great time to introduce the arts to everybody here as we've laid out a great walking path for you. So this is the first of 4 sessions. I just wanted to tell you what the next 2 are. The next one is Wednesday, August 5th at 4 p.m. Pacific time, which is entitled Stanford for Life, Your All Access Guide to Engaging with Stanford. That is led by the SAA Chief Alumni Relations Officer, Renee Hirschberg, who's been so great on helping us get this set up. And then the third one is Town Hall with President Levin, Wednesday, September 30th. Look for the link. There are 2 time sessions for you guys, 9 a.m. or 4 p.m. Pacific time. Okay, most importantly, we want to make sure you guys take the survey. So when this closes, please take the survey. That's how we always make these things better. And we want to make sure that you guys have time to come to our Stanford Arts, the museums, the concerts, the public art, and all of the programming for you. So thank you so much for being here.